In this video, we're going to look at the Cerbos playground. The Cerbos playground, available at play.cerbos.dev, is a web-based environment that allows you to prototype, test, and share different policies as you start experimenting with Cerbos in a way that's collaborative and gives you real-time feedback as you start working with different policies and resources. To start with, we're going to look at one of the examples. So the playground has a number of examples built in that gives you a bit of a stepping stone to get going and give you reference policies from which you can build on top of to match your use case. In this case, we're going to load our HR platform example. Now the UI hopefully should look pretty similar to a VS Code or whatever IDE you use. So on the left, there's different files, and Cerbos supports kind of unlimited number of files which contain different policy types. So be it derived roles, principal policies, or resource policies. So for example, we have a resource leave request policy in here, and you can add in new files from the UI, and we give you template examples of what each of those should look like as you create them. The code editor, as you expect, then at the bottom as well, we give you outputs whether the policies compile, and compiling is an important step in Cerbos, where we basically check that everything is as it should and all the reference roles and derived roles are all in the right place. And if I were to make a typo, we'll give you feedback down here that roles are not available, and you can go and fix it, and it will load and valid. So that is kind of no different to your regular IDE or text editor. Where it gets interesting and what we hope is really useful is this right-hand section. So on the right here, we enable you to actually test your policies against a actual Cerbos instance and give you an idea of what the response would be based on the 3 key bits of information in a check request, an action, a principal, and the resource. So the actions, as defined your policies, are the things that a user is trying to do. The principal is who is trying to do it, and the resource is what they're trying to take that action upon. And each of these, you can add new fields, new actions. You can add in new principles following the schema that Cerbos expects for schema for a principal, and likewise for a resource. And these can get saved into the playground instance. So when you share this with a colleague by copy and pasting the URL and sending it to them, all of these are preloaded, and you don't need to send around snippets or example code requests. They can see exactly what you're seeing in your environment, and you can save and edit these to your heart's content. And as you can see, as I'm changing the principal for this particular resource, I'm actually getting different action response based upon what my policies should say. So we're actually running a instance of the Cerbos PDP for the playground, and we're making these checks in real time as you experiment and change the resources and the principles as you kind of build up your policies. So now you kind of got the policies where you want. You can do a quick validation to check the entire matrix. So rather than just looking at individual principles and resources one by one, we give you this matrix view where you can see, for the draft leave request resource, all the different principles that I've defined. Here I can see the matrix of what is allowed and denied based on the actions, and also sort of vice versa. So for this particular principle, all the resources in the system, what actions would they have? And it's a good final check to make sure you've covered all the edge cases of permissioning you may have, and then you're ready to go and start implementing it. Now the playground's got a few features in it which make implementing that much easier. So for starters, we'll show you the actual raw HTTP request that would be sent to the Cerbos PDP and the response based upon the resources and principles that are defined. So you can see it's sending over the actions, it's sending over the principle and the resource in the format as expected, and the response that comes back. So if you were hitting Cerbos directly, making HTTP calls, this is the format that it would need to be in to come back. But we've got one step further. We have a implementation section here where for the languages that Cerbos is supported and provides supported SDKs for, which is Node, Java, and Go, we actually generate example code, which is a point for you as a stepping stone to get going, to copy and paste out into your code base and start integrating with Cerbos with as little friction as possible. And we give you example requests based upon the resource and the principle that's selected in Node, Java, and Go. And to make it even that much simpler, given that Cerbos is designed to run kind of alongside your application, but if you're just getting going and want to test things, we appreciate that's an extra step. So we provide a hosted demo PDP instance. So this is not designed for production. Your requests are going to go over the internet, but it means you can just get going without having to run the container or the binary on your local machine or inside your infrastructure. And with this enabled, it sets the host name to our hosted cloud PDP instance and passes in the Playground instance ID, which is just from the URL. Now what this means is when you make a check request, it's going to come in and Cerbos will actually pull the policies from the Playground directly. So it's actually a really nice way to very quickly iterate on actual real code inside your application, but write the policies via the browser in the Playground instance without having to go through and pull those into your local machine and into your code base straight away. If you're just getting going and want to experiment, this hosted PDP makes life so much easier. But equally, if you do have a PDP instance running in your stack, you can just change the endpoint for the PDP, and it will update the code samples as well as and when you do that, and you can actually start iterating and building that way. So we hope you find this environment useful. There are multiple examples. We'll be adding more over time for the different sorts of ways you can use Cerbos and the different sorts of policies. Each one has a README, and you can actually create your own READMEs as well for any policies instances you create, which is really useful if you're sharing notes with your colleagues. And once you're logged in, you can actually save and create sort of whole new environments and save them and share them with your colleagues just via the URL, and use this environment to collaborate and come up with the best policies for your system. So as always, if you have any questions or like any help, you can reach us on the Cerbos community Slack group. We are all on there and not keen to help and discuss your policy requirements and help you in this Playground environment define the policies that best suit your use case. For any more information, head over to cerbos.dev. We have links to all the documentation, to our GitHub repos, and some more examples of using Cerbos. Thanks.